OpenAI and some of these different companies didn't even exist 20 years ago. So these are all, within the last 10 to 15 years where these things have started up and completely changed the game.
Welcome to the Menlo Experience. I'm your host, Brad Sand, here with Kyle Bach. And we were just chatting a little bit before we got on air here about the old Walkman CD players and how you had to take a cassette tape and put it in your car with the little wire plugged in.
That's right.
It was anti-skip. You were talking about the anti-skip. How well did that actually work?
Yeah, it wasn't anti-skip. Or if it was, you want to know what it was like before it was anti-skip, because it just wouldn't have ever played apparently. But yeah, anti-skip definitely skipped quite a bit.
I feel like mine would skip for about 3 minutes until it found its place back on the CD.
Yeah. Did you ever get the FM transmitter also that was, you plugged into the headphone jack and it sent it to some radio station, but then you'd always have to change the radio station on it because it was like
interference.
You get interference on different channels.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
We were talking about the old boom boxes too. Kids don't know any of that. Like they walk around with their little AirPods and phone in their pocket. Meanwhile, you and I are carrying a 40-pound bag of concrete. It's called a boom box around.
Yeah. I've got a little Bluetooth Bose speaker right now that you'd think you have an entire sound system in a room, but we'd carry these massive things on our shoulders, and quite a bit of different experience.
$72 in battery costs to replace them, at the time. So.
You get choked on with the cords and everything, but now they got all wireless, so pretty crazy how technology changes.
So such a simple life these days, right?
Yeah.
But no, we were also talking AI, so let's talk a little AI, right? We go from that, let's see, that was 30 years ago. I guess that is a long time, but now we're at the age of AI, and some of the developments coming out are just absolutely crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty wild watching. I mean, just the rate of innovation that's happening, the rate of change is just exponentially increasing across all of these things. And, we're seeing glimpses of what AI can do right now, but it's just we're starting to see the surface of it. But they can compose their own music, right? They can write their own things, own books. And my wife is, a huge anti against that because there's all these different, conversations around creatives and AI taking over some of those things. And it's, pretty wild how fast all of that can change. And it's 30 years ago that we're talking about from when we were that age. But when you think about how fast all of this has changed in the last 15 years, right? Or in the last 10 years even, OpenAI and some of these different companies didn't even exist 20 years ago. So these are all, within the last 10 to 15 years where these things have started up and completely changed the game.
Well, we just hit the 3-year anniversary for ChatGPT, right? I mean, and that seems
years.
wild. It's only been 3 years since it's been around. And it's much more kind of a household name and commonplace, but that's still pretty basic. I mean, what people are using ChatGPT is a basic usage of AI today.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many more advancements. I saw something on Anthropic had 16 agents that took about a week to compile an entire Linux kernel, which has been in development for 37 years. So it's, to your point, the rate of change. And I don't think most people are keeping up or know it's coming or even know how to use it.
How do you see this impacting our business or just business in general? Because there's a lot of fear around there about, the amount of jobs that might be displaced and types of jobs that might be displaced. And or maybe that's even displacing some of the jobs already right now, which I think is certainly true to some degree. How do you see that impacting business and how are we even seeing it in our development roadmap?
Yeah, I would say since I've gotten into the tools a lot more, AI is absolutely going to displace jobs. I mean, and it's coming and it's going to come fast and people aren't even going to know what happened.
Yeah.
Now, I think the word I would use, whether this instance or other instances in business, is the word pivot, right? And so I think if you watch the stock market over the earnings calls over the last month or so, software stocks are taking a hit, right? So many, because AI can help you develop software so much faster and do your own things and all that.
Vibe coding, right?
Vibe coding. And I do think that is an overreaction, because the reality is all these software companies that wrote software and were good at it before now just have a tool to accelerate, right? And so they'll adopt these tools, they'll adapt and we'll take advantage of them, and they're going to be able to do so much more because they still have the skill set of people that truly understand good software development, how things should work, good planning and all that. So it comes back to me, fundamentals, just like everything else. You've got to have a good vision.
Yep.
You've got to be able to have good experience. You got to know where AI is going wrong or off the rails. And if you're just blindly following what it's doing,
Yeah.
it may produce something, but you're still going to be missing the fundamentals, the basics.
Yeah.
Is there a market for this? Consumers going to buy it or business is going to buy it?
Yeah.
So I think you still need the basics and the skills, but the absolute rate that we can develop internally and create our own tools and not need to go out for some things is a massive improvement. And so for us, 2026 is going to be moving light years ahead for that. So how do you see AI playing in the market and the impact really in the macro economy and the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's already starting to displace jobs. I think it's yet to be seen exactly who or how fast or some of those things. But I think if more than anything, I mean, and I think this is true for us as well, just even internally, but I think it's just slowing down maybe some of the hiring. So it's not necessarily displacing roles currently right now, but it's just some of those roles that may have been additional add-ons as businesses were growing won't need to be added as frequently. So sizes of companies will be able to stay a little bit leaner as some of those tools roll out. And I think we're seeing some of that across some of these tech layoffs. I think are certainly part of that because, even from a programming standpoint, if you can get 80% of the way there with some code and you're not just starting at, ground zero, or you can spin up, different agents to help you with some of that coding. It's ways that even smaller businesses have opportunities to compete with larger ones that they couldn't have competed with before. So in some ways it's kind of it could be an equalizer for a lot of small businesses that are trying to get started as well. And some of those small businesses, I'm sure then will get acquired by some of the larger ones, which is what you typically see in a lot of, we saw that in the app space a lot, over the last 15 to 20 years. And I think we'll see some of those same things happen in the AI space as we see some of that development. But I think there's going to be companies in the AI space that nobody's heard of right now that 3 years from now will be household names like ChatGPT. And so, it'll be that quick of a turn. And I think we've seen that even in the last 6 to 12 months here, we've seen certain different AI engines go in and out really quickly. So we've had some of them, ChatGPT might be a really good example of that.
I think OpenAI has got some real risks ahead.
Yeah. I mean, they're not financially solvent at all. And, so they're financial, the joke I always like to say is the math doesn't math for OpenAI. Yep. And it never has, but it really doesn't, as they bought up 40% of the
memory and
40% of the memory globally is what they, made a commitment to purchase. Well, the amount of money and the capital that takes, they don't even have, and they don't have a revenue model for it, which is why they're talking about ads and things like that. Right. So all of those type of things, that's a whole, business that truthfully 3 years from now might not even exist, which is wild to think about, but that's how fast, a business like this in this rate of change can just completely tank. And so I think we're going to see some of that, whether it's OpenAI or whether it's going to be, other ones. I think we'll see some of that that doesn't have the financial model figured out or hasn't picked a niche to focus on, right? Which is what we're seeing in a lot of different AI companies, them focusing on, okay, we're really good at coding, or we're really good at for doctors, or they're kind of identifying their, area of focus, and Nano Banana, right, for Google and things like that with image creation. But, I think what we're seeing is every 6 months, the list that's the best at each of those things is almost shifting every 6 months as far as who's doing it better now. And so you have to see a constant capital, reinvestment in those companies. And I think the big ones that have the most amount of capital to invest in it that are winning right now, Google's definitely on top of that list. But there's, others as well that are excelling that, we'll see the winners. But I think it's too early to tell who the winners are. It's not going to be a first to market that's going to be the winner in this thing. And so
no, I mean, if you look back and there's not a lot of people that probably remember this that are younger, but the .com boom and bust in the late 90s, 2000s, had a lot of the similar, dump a lot of money into it, and there's only so many players in the market that are eventually going to pan out, and the ones that you think are the early adopters, or I shouldn't even say the early adopters, early names, a lot of times fade and are in and out and stuff.
I mean, let's think about AOL Instant Message, AOL, right? Sure. I mean, let's think about all the different names that, were common back then and, and now are just gone. All right, last thing. What was the last thing that you searched for in ChatGPT or your AI of choice? What was the last thing you did?
The last thing?
Yeah.
I was searching for processor interrupts on a VM that was causing iSCSI latency. pretty nerdy.
And if you
Pretty nerdy
understand that,
stuff.
people, you should give us a call because you can come work with us.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great thing. Most people
Come
probably
on
are
over.
not searching
Come
for
on
that on
over.
a daily
That's
basis.
right. That's right.
We
will hire you.
Hold on, Jess. What was the last thing you searched for on ChatGPT?
Yep. Let's hear it.
Was it Ice Guzzy stuff?
No,
No. Okay.
Was it boots?
no, I don't really use it for personal use. It's more probably for marketing. It's
Marketing.
probably social media.
Something for
Okay.
social
Yeah,
media.
that's fair.
Okay.
Well, here's a thought I want
Yeah.
to bring back to you. You talked about layoffs and some of these things.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that there are a lot of companies right now that had bloat
Oh,
and
for
that
sure.
are using AI as cover
Yeah.
to reduce workforce,
Yeah.
right? And so I think there is adoption going on and time will tell. But I also think it's a convenient
Yeah.
kind of timing in the market and ability to trim some
Yeah, I listened to a really interesting podcast the other day. I think it was a Wall Street Journal one, but it was talking about how 3 years ago, staffing was so difficult for a lot of tech companies as well. And because staffing was so difficult, they were keeping people so, at like aggressive rates and not letting people go when they normally would have because it was so hard to find new talent.
Right.
And so they were over, extending, keeping people on their, payroll so that they didn't have to go find new people because it was so hard to find talent there for a while. And so that's also part of what we're seeing in this correction that's going on right now with a lot of these companies that now it's actually not been, it's almost like once you burst the dam a little bit, it started kind of correcting itself. And now we're at the point where, staffing, we've even seen staffing positions in the last 6 to 12 months is just completely different than it was 2-3 years ago. Just night and day different on staffing and finding high quality talent. And so some of the people that we've hired in the last 6 months are some of the, are some great employees and great, highly skilled technicians that are helping us go to the next level.
Well, I'm proud of where we're at too, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that are trimming and we're doubling down and growing and
Yeah.
adding positions and
Yeah.
that. And I think when the market is kind of hesitating, that's a great opportunity for you to hit the accelerator.
Yeah.
You got to do it right. You got to be smart about it, but hit the accelerator and really take off and take advantages of those downturns and the people available that certainly we're trying to bring into the organization. So
Yeah.
Here, changing gears a little bit.
Yep. Okay.
How nice was it to kind of have your January, February back and not have to worry about the Chiefs in the playoffs?
You know what? I have to say it was a really nice break. Let the rest of the world care about football for a little while. I kind of ignored it up until the Super Bowl, watched that game, but I pretty much ignored football for about, a month and a half or so. That was great. I'm looking forward to next year when we, have it interrupted again, but it was fantastic.
Yeah,
having
it's
a break.
nice. It is interesting to not necessarily have a dog in a fight and just for me, just to watch the entire operation that is the NFL and what is a almost cultural event now for the Super Bowl. And I was reading about the price of tickets and how they're pretty much out of reach for so many people and fans and it's turned into this cultural phenomenon,
Yeah.
And so it's the NFL's built this brand and you've got this marketing engine and the halftime show and all that sort of stuff that in so many ways that Super Bowl is not about a football game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really, they almost build the entire thing for the TV audience also, right? And so there's, the production and everything is now based, and you think about, I don't know when this changed, but maybe The Weeknd might've been the first one that really started changing towards, it's really for the TV audience, less about the people that are in the stands. And, but it became this production that was much more intimate and in your face. But it's because so many people can't come to the game. It's less about even being present there at the game and more about, just the people that are watching. And so I did think the commercials were a little weak this year. Do you think the commercials are weak?
I did think they were weak.
I was like, this is a little bit of a letdown this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, maybe they've been weak for years, but we've been watching the
with too
football game and
intense,
too stressed out, you know?
We had priorities.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
Just
Maybe that's what was going on. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think the takeaway from all of that, to your point about TV and all of that sort of stuff, is it becomes about reach, right? And how do you get your message and how do you broaden? Because really, if you look at social media and those sorts of things, it's an attention economy, right?
Yep.
And that is what you're driving for. And so you want to develop as much as you can to get all those eyes on it.
Yeah.
And even if you look at the halftime show, it was the first ever, at least that I know of, that was not in English.
Yeah.
And so the reach being not only cultural recognition of what Bad Bunny represents, but also the reach of an international audience that the NFL is going. And I think I saw it's either 9 or 13 games outside of the country next year, and continuing to drive that. And so it's just really interesting in the way you bring technology and media and kind of the reach that all of these things matter to a business now that really were not the case 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you think, I mean, we've heard a lot in Kansas City here about, the history of the Chiefs over the last few years with the documentary that came out, and certainly with the stadium changes and things like that. It's, there's a lot of conversations about the Chiefs going on, even though we weren't in, the playoffs here, but there's a lot of conversations about the Chiefs and the history of the program. And when it got started, I mean, it was a bad business idea, right? Like, I mean, it really wasn't a financially, solvent, and it wasn't the type of business that it is today, right? And I saw something that was the Clark Hunt, the Hunt family might be like the 12th richest person in America now.
Maybe, I don't know.
Something that was crazy like that. I didn't fact check that, so if Jess can correct me and put it in the notes. But Kyle doesn't know what he's talking about. She'll just do a sub disclaimer there. But that like the Hunt family, I mean, took such a huge risk, right, to build this this entity, and from the beginning of it, it wasn't a good idea. But as it's shifted over time and the attention of it and the business model of it, I think we're just seeing more than ever just the full business model of the NFL and of a sports team. And I think we're seeing that even influence other teams and other sports as it's expanding, because I think the NFL's doing some things right to go nationally that a lot of other teams and leagues haven't gotten right yet.
To me, all of this gets back to what we talked about with AI. And you got to be able to pivot a business, right? Mm-hmm. You start out, you've got something going, and you get some traction. And how do you pivot? How do you expand? How do you grow that opportunity in different areas? And it all ties together. And that's why I think AI is going to make significant inroads. But it's still going to be fundamentals and good business practices, good vision, and a good plan to grow, expand, reach your market that are what always have been fundamentally there with business.
Yeah. So when it comes to reach, we've spent a lot of time here recently talking about expanding our reach and our attention, and how do we get more eyeballs and more awareness to what we do with schools and how we serve them. As you think about reach from a sales and from a marketing standpoint and just awareness, what do you think are some of the things that as we look at 2026 that we need to really press into and double down on just for 2026?
Yeah, I think when you talk about reach, certainly we want to gain exposure. We want to gain that. We're working to move nationally, and we're about a third of the country so far. The bigger picture thought I have on that is, I always think of Red Bull. Do you ever check any of Red Bull's social media?
Yeah.
If you check Red Bull, they don't have a single advertisement for the product they sell. Yeah. Right? They are doing funny things or extreme sports or whatever this, right? And so
you're saying we're going to sponsor an F1 team? I get behind this.
I think Jess,
are you in on this? I fully support this idea.
Only if we get a driver pass for like a couple races. That's
I don't think you can sponsor and not get that. Okay. So I feel like
that's it. Then we're good to go.
All right.
And we'll need to find some sponsors behind us. Yes,
that's
absolutely.
right. That's right.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is getting attention and mind share that can bring people in, right? I mean, ultimately, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to gain somebody in a world of noise. And really bring them into what we're doing. And so that is certainly more exposure, but exposure itself doesn't cut through the noise. So I think we've got to be pretty creative and crafty and what does that mean, and how do we connect with people at the end of the day so that we have the opportunity to talk about our message and why we're different and ultimately better. But I think again Red Bull or brands like that are a really good case.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I mean, thinking about being different, approaching it differently, right? And having a different approach, breaking through the white noise a little bit in the culture that we're in right now. Because to some degree, Red Bull hasn't, they kind of charted a new path at that point. And now there's a bunch of, different agencies and things like that have tried to kind of replicate that. But Red Bull's kind of, created their own, niche for that. Although in some ways, the Alex, what was the guy's name that climbed the Taipei?
Oh yeah.
I mean, in some ways, Netflix kind of, took a page out of Red Bull's playbook a little bit on that, and somebody who that would have normally been a Red Bull sponsored event, right? And here everybody's tuning in to watch this thing on Netflix, which I couldn't bring myself to watch during real time. Can you imagine that? But I just, were you watching that real time?
I was busy. I don't. We had something going
Were
on.
you watching that real time? Oh my gosh.
My hands would be sweating.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have, I don't know, man. That's but I mean, that's a Red Bull-esque, type of, initiative. But I think, doing marketing different, standing out
So hold on a
differently.
second. Are you saying we should have a contest to have somebody scale our building as part of our social media?
Definitely think somebody should be scaling our building. I bet if we put a
can't-
contest out there.
Don't run that by legal, though. Okay,
no,
because
legal's-
that's probably going to be an
legal's
issue.
not allowed to listen to this episode,
Or
apparently.
insurance
so
company. But,
That's
outside of that, it sounds like a great idea.
I think it sounds fantastic.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
that's the next, that's the call to action here, guys, is sign up for our contest to scale the building.
That's right,
And
that's
full
right.
disclaimer, please don't scale our building. So
To be clear, I think somebody scaled it when they tagged it a couple months ago, but let's not talk about that either. So
downtown life. Right?
downtown.
All right. So here's the thing. There's a lot we don't know. It's going to be a great 2026.
Yeah.
And you'll have to stay tuned to figure out how we keep up and talk about it. So for now, this has been the Menlo Experience. We'll see you next time.
See ya.